Welcome, professors and fellow academicians, to this year's Xenoarchaeology Symposium. I am so proud to welcome you here to the University of Escher, other side, and joining me are some of my very favorite fellow professors and specialists in the field. Would you like to introduce yourselves, professors? Starting with, of course, Dr. Osborn.
Oh, hello, I'm Dr. Osborn, and I'm coming to you from Huntsville, Alabama, the Rocket City.
I see. And how are things in Huntsville? It is by now quite an ancient civilization.
Yes, it is, and we're loaded with artifacts and museums, and it's amazing what this ancient technology is able to accomplish.
Marvelous. And another old friend, Professor James Beall. Please tell us how you are and how you are doing.
Oh, I'm doing very well. I just got back from a dig at New Charleston, and I found that in my absence, the University of Rigel had sent me another crate of items. But to my surprise and somewhat dismay, I must confess, my grad students in my absence opened them, and so there's a tale to tell there, I'm afraid, as well.
Well, we look forward to hearing it. Thank you so much. And last and absolutely certainly not least, Professor Patricia Briggs. Welcome.
So good to see you again. I am so happy to be here at the University of Benton City, Washington, on the which is located on the ancient site, and we believe it is a very important site. Unfortunately, it was blasted by a nuclear power plant collapse about 1,000 years ago. So we just, we have to make these things up. And I want to tell you, I have the best grad students this year. You'll notice that I have this in my hair, and I wanted to tell you that I have this wonderful grad student of mine finally found the item referred to in the 09 translation of "stick a fork in it," and she figured out this was a fork. And she has been so good at finding these old hair ornaments that we, as I show you, as I wear my artifacts, I have to be kind of careful of them. Of course, if they fall off, they might break. But it's been so much fun this year. I am so happy to share with you the wonderful work that my grad students have been doing. I've been at the hairdressers.
Oh, that's marvelous, Professor. I am delighted, and I cannot wait to hear your discourse upon it. As you know, grad students are frequently expendable and disposable, but the ones that are worth keeping are worth cherishing.
I am. So this one may not graduate for another 2 decades.
Oh my. Well, we'll never tell. Absolutely not. I am the Dean of the Xenoarchaeology Department of the University of Escher, and my name is Jody Lynn Nye, as my students have come to fear and dread, but also to prize. So we have many interesting artifacts to go over today, and I think that I have a couple that are absolutely splendid to begin with, and I think they're truly marvelous finds. So I want to know what you think of them. I found these in what was a ruined basilica in the moons of Trenor 13. As you know, 6 of the moons had been inhabited by various sects, and now, of course, they are all in ruins. But we discovered missals of prayer songs. You can see how wonderful they are, with the prayer numbers noted, and calling upon blessings on various objects and substances that are well known on Trenor, including, as you can see, dollar, concrete, oatmeal, one of the staples of life, of course. And I think that, well, there were many more like this besides, showing that at one time they must have had a very large congregation. So I was just delighted to locate these, and naturally I have my grad students and my personal aide going over them and sorting them according to, as you can see, that there's a color scheme involved, that the hymns become more and more serious as you get closer to the end of the service. And some of them are very brightly colored indeed, which makes me wonder about the liturgy itself. But we have found no other real guidance. We found various kinds of fonts. They seem to have pigmentation encrusted upon them. So there was obviously some sort of color ritual that went along with this. I'm not certain, but we are investigating.
Well,
Do you
perhaps
suppose-
the colors. Go ahead, sorry, go ahead.
Do you
I'm
suppose perhaps you found a pantheon? Maybe that it's a different color for each
Oh.
of the gods that's being worshipped?
Oh my heavens, then that will be a very complex pantheon indeed. I will set a few of my students on that. After all, the more they publish, the better off they are. And of course, we are as the university, because publish or perish, all the articles that pertain to a particular university help us to get more funding. And if there's something we academics have, is a lack of funding.
I'll grant you that.
Dr. Nye, I wonder if the colors might have something to do with the pitch or the intensity of the singing for the hymnals, of the
I think
chorals.
that you may be right, Professor. And the color, we translated the numbers also that are on that, and they do increase in numbers. So it's possible that the pitch does also
Like the
increase.
vibrations, maybe.
Yes,
Yes.
more hertz per second, and so on. But
Oh, very good.
but I cannot wait to see some of the things that the rest of you have brought to the symposium. Perhaps Professor Briggs, do you have a favorite one that you want to show us today?
I do. You all know that my favorite line of inquiry into the 20th century is torture devices. They have such unusual things for torture devices. And one of my grad students dug this up actually here in Benton City, which was very exciting. I don't know if you can see this, but it has little handles and a little squishy thing. And that we do, I do think this was a torture device of some sort, like you stick it on your tongue and take the tongue off. I think that might work. But there is this odd padding here. The alternative for one of my grad students who will never graduate, and I'm thinking of kicking them out because they keep having contradictory ideas to what I have. The other one is that perhaps it was a sign of beauty in that era not to have eyelashes. And so you would put this on your, because it does seem to have kind of an eye, and you put this on your eyelashes and rip them out.
Good heavens.
Please don't put that anywhere near the camera. It scares me.
Yes, I can see Professor Beall is recoiling from this quite rightly too. Is there any documentation that goes along with your students' theory? Because it seems really outrageous that they would do anything with that except torture.
I don't know. We do have some paintings, but they seem to be from earlier decades or epochs in which people are painted without eyelashes. And so we're doing some work with that. But that seems to be several centuries before this artifact was created.
I see. May I see the action of the device again? Because it struck me that it reminded me a little bit of a device they used to use in the Thorson binary for picking up items of food.
Oh, how interesting. Yeah, you can't see me, I'm off script. Let's see. I suppose you could pick up something with it, but I prefer the torture answer. It just makes my heart happy. And
your publications about it have been most stirring.
Yes, and the deeper I get into it, the bigger the donations get. So you know.
Very true. Very true. Did you have any thoughts about this, Dr. Osborn?
My only thoughts was, could it be sexual in nature in any way?
Oh, well, maybe we're trying to keep this PG-13, so I won't. We'll just say that is a very small aperture, and we'll keep it at that.
Okay.
We may have some very young students viewing this, and we do not want to be shut down because that would cause our sponsors some distress, and in so doing, cause us distress.
That's another panel. I do have some interesting artifacts for that one.
But that will be much later, and it will have an encoding that only the senior professors will be able to access.
Those are the funnest ones.
Those are the very interesting ones. So, Dr. Osborn, do you have anything that you want to show us? I'm very eager to learn what you have from the Rocket City.
We did run across one thing, and we believe it may actually be a form of evolution of living beings, how they were different at one point than we are now. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these before, but this evidently is reading material.
Oh, I see.
Oh,
It's
that's like when they wrote things on paper.
It's on paper.
How bizarre. And how ephemeral.
Toilet. So I'm thinking biologically, their eyes are not where our eyes currently are.
Oh my. What a very interesting facet of evolution.
So
But
that explains so many things.
Yes, it explains quite a lot of the political commentary of the era.
Right. And so we have some people that are doing designs and sketches of what the beings may look like. And we hope to have something very soon. But this has confounded us for quite a while.
Very, very interesting. I have not seen anything like that. Were you able to translate any of the reading material itself?
Just some of the words. We're having problems with some phrases. Phrases such as poom.
Boom.
And Zako.
Zako. Could these be sacred phrases or code words?
It may be a form of praise.
They
seem to be very heavy in the consonants.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
You know they're important.
A lot of gutturals.
Very large on the page.
Well, let me say then that is a most Zako artifact indeed.
Very adaptive.
Well, we do pride ourselves in speaking multiple languages, 302 at the last count. So
I'm 403.
Yes, well, torture manuals come in many, many more languages, I'm afraid. So my interests are a little bit more, well, I should say less torture involved, except for the device which is.
I know, dear. Dry academic texts are are translated into multiple languages. So you only need 1 or 2 languages to get maybe 5 or 6 texts.
Yes. Well, may I introduce you to the Arch-Chancellor of our university? This is Dr. Athena, and she herself is very interested in artifacts, but mostly on a basis of comfort levels. Oh, hello. Yes. And
one of my assistants.
I see. You're very fortunate to have found one with blue eyes.
Yes.
So let me see. Professor Beall, do you have something that you wish to show us?
Well, this is one of the puzzles that I found in the crate. And the grad student who was assigned this or took it upon himself to assign it to himself, we can't find him. We suspect he's left the university, but we don't know why. It was sent to us with the note that the grad student who was investigating this at Rigel also apparently has left the facility. This appears to be a nested set of spheres. You can see with a great many ornate things on it, inscriptions and symbols. And at one point, they were thinking it was a nighttime sleep aid, assuming these beings slept at night. But you notice that the interior spheres move around.
Yes.
And they also have holes in them. I'm not going to move it anymore because the last note.
It's a torture device.
from the grad student was that they were going to try to line up all the holes.
Ah, and that may have been a problem because it looks like a Pelgon's eyeball to me, which
Well-
of course had multiple lenses and the ability to focus, which came in handy because there was in the optic nerve a laser, and very dangerous indeed.
You're thinking maybe a prosthetic device.
But a
Oh.
prosthetic what though? We don't know. I mean, the notes from Rigel are very scanty. The graduate student who was doing it stopped in mid-sentence. He says, "I'm going to try to line up the whole," and that's where it stopped.
You know
Could
what,
it be a
Professor
transport
Beall?
device of sorts?
I wouldn't line up the holes. I just wouldn't do that.
You
Or make
think-
one of your grad students. Do you have a grad student that is particularly smart and steals your limelight a bit?
that
That
was
would
this
be a
guy.
wonderful project for them.
That was this one. That's why he took this one.
Oh, congratulations.
Oh, I see. I
So
mean, that,
I might just hold this in reserve for another grad student who perhaps needs more attention of some sort.
or one who is particularly expendable.
I think that's quite wise. I
Absolutely.
have a couple of devices like that myself.
Do you indeed? Are they discoveries or personal paraphernalia? Because we are, of course, talking about artifacts today, and we'll save the personal paraphernalia for that late night panel. Yes, indeed. But do you have another object you wish to display for us, Professor Briggs?
I do. Now we've discovered this, and it bears a certain resemblance to something called a spatula, which was used to cook food. So we're thinking this might have something to do with food. And or one of my grad students says perhaps it was a fan to keep you cool, because it does have that quality. But you know, I have been working with this to see how it might be used as a torture device, but it seems a little lightweight for that.
Well, it depends on the being it was being used on as well.
Is true. I knew I could count upon you, Doctor, to come up with the right way to look upon this.
Or
Yes.
could it possibly be used for food, but it's a diet aid?
Oh, that's possible.
So that heavier food would drop out.
Yes, so it's a serving device for people who want to appear to be generous or want to seem as if they're having a generous meal, but in fact are eating less for their health.
Dr. Osborn, that is brilliant. I shall have to go tell all my grad students they're wrong again.
Well, I think that's some of the only fun we get, Professor.
I do like torturing grad students too.
I could tell from the look on your face, Professor Briggs, that you already have in mind the device you are going to inform them with.
Yes.
Why, yes, actually, it might have a dual purpose.
Woo!
Well, I would look forward to that late night panel.
Yes, indeed.
So, Dr. Osborn, what else have you found in your studies?
Oh, yes. Actually, we found something that totally inundated an entire city.
Good heavens, really?
We think it may have been part of its actual demise, because everywhere we went, we found these.
I cannot wait to see.
Oh.
Oh, I can't let Dr. Athena see that because she chases them.
I have seen many of those devices. Do you have any idea what they do? We've been trying to figure out if they were maybe like strangulation devices, but we just can't find a way to hurt people with them.
Everywhere we found these, we found bodies.
Really?
Yes,
So
everywhere. Almost like remember the ancient city of Pompeii?
Well, yes, of course. I saw nothing like that in Pompeii, I'm afraid.
What they were doing, everyone was near one of these, sitting in an upright position and just dead.
That's
Good heavens.
Well,
So,
perhaps it's a ritual object they buried people with in a sitting position.
It could be an embalming device,
I would try that maybe on a few of your grad students.
possibly. Possibly. It does have a connector of some sort for
mhm.
the other end.
Ooh.
I
That
think
is
that was
very ancient looking indeed.
We're
And
thinking maybe, once again with prosthetic devices
mhm.
actually plugged into the person somewhere.
Maybe the fact that you found them disconnected meant that their life was at an end and it was disconnected from those sitting corpses.
Possibly.
Perhaps.
They could have been used to control workers,
Or a life support device of some kind.
because you have about 3 feet of cord. So if a person went more than 3 feet away, they would unplug and die.
And that would be the end of it. Oh my goodness. That is very short-sighted to have them on such a short leash. Unless, of course, it was some sort of slave labor or...
I give my grad students at least 12 feet.
That's very generous of you, Professor.
I thought so.
But anyway, that's one of our discoveries. That we're compiling a whole catalog because they come in different shapes and sizes and colors, even shapes of what cartoon characters I think they were called.
Oh, very odd. And
Still on children.
so they were possibly life support devices, or they were objects of ritual importance.
Metal control devices.
But we may never actually know.
That is very true. That is very true.
Dr.
Of
Osborn,
course,
I would suggest you tabulate and try to establish some kind of database of the various colors and shapes with some aspects of the remains, perhaps the size of the bone, maybe the length of any particular part of the bone, limb or antenna or something like that. And so we could try to figure out if there's any basis for comparing which ones were issued, whatever those things are.
Yes, yes. That's part of our cataloging system, but it's going to take years.
and more funding, of course. So I want to appeal to our sponsors at this point, the kind people who are looking in, that to direct your donations, of course, to the various universities that our symposium participants represent. Just to remind you that in order for us to continue these most interesting researches, that it doesn't come cheap, my friends, it just does not. Professor Beall, what have you got for us? I realize that your grad student has jumbled things a bit, but perhaps we can help you make sense out of the artifacts that you had packed?
Well, here's the problem. What I have here is a scale model of what they're building out there. And it's not clear what it is. It's been called a feline flinger. And some people are suggesting that perhaps, oh my God, well, it's just a scale model, remember? If that one falls out there, it's going to kill somebody. But anyway, they were thinking that perhaps it was used to throw porcupines into besieged towns, and then they would run around these porcupines as to terrify the besieged population. But I don't know what it's going to do, but I just hope they don't point it in this direction, whatever way it's pointing. Does anyone have any other ideas of what this might be?
At that size, it looks like it might fling eggs across the room.
You don't understand. The one out, this is 14 meters out there, best I can tell.
Oh, good.
This is a scale model. I don't know what this is supposed to do.
In that little chair, like little device, and
Yes,
and would fling grad students.
Well, I believe so. At 14 feet, the device probably could accommodate an entire being.
I don't know what it's going to do, but those we're already missing one grad student. Unlike Professor Briggs, I don't have quite as many. But you know, I do have some professors who are angling for my spot. I'm hoping that they will help my grad students test it out. I don't know
Well,
I don't know.
Oh,
as
that
long
is
as
a
you give them
delightful
credit on the
idea.
abstract, I think that they would go ahead and help you with your research.
I'm suggesting I might put their names on the bottom of the participating professors or something.
Absolutely.
I think that's lovely.
That's a marvelous idea, and make sure you get it on video.
Uh, I don't know what they're doing out there, but that's why I scheduled it for now, this conference for now, because I don't want to be out there when they're doing it.
Yes.
Quite wise. I've
Very
always
wise.
respected
Yeah,
your
one
wisdom.
doesn't become a senior professor by being out when grad students are messing with things.
Speaking of the grad students,
Not that one. He's a good grad student. Oh, I'm sorry.
in that what you would do is you would take the person who is supposed to deliver the message, put them in that, and then send them to a nearby city to deliver the message.
This
Yeah,
must have been before telephony. This must be so ancient that it predates electricity.
You think maybe it's a
Maybe an urgent
communication device,
message.
express delivery of some sort?
Yes.
Mm.
Well, if they deliver that, professor, I won't mind at all.
Well, they deliver it. They deliver it in person, so it's never written down and could get intercepted by the enemy.
Very,
Ah.
very,
Well,
Yeah,
if they
very.
try to
it's the
intercept
ultimate and
professor,
unencodable.
he's eating very well. If they try to intercept him, they've got another thing coming.
Very
I
good.
trust you are filming this, Dr. Bell. I would love to watch this tonight.
Oh, the outtakes would be just splendid. And
You know, I'm telling you, there's more than one way to get a grant. You know.
that is very true. The more copies of that can be downloaded, the better the remuneration will be.
I'd turn the camera out there and let you see it, but I'm afraid Professor Briggs might not be ready for anything else in the rest of the presentation.
Well,
I would be very careful, and when you disseminate that, make sure you send out invitations to that professor's former students so that they can enjoy a video of him completing his work.
I want you to know that one of the reasons why I suggested that those particular professors, some of them have some very good grad students, and when you're not a professor anymore.
well, it's the most satisfying splat, I have no doubt. Professor
Oh
Briggs,
my, look at that.
Oh.
That's quite an art.
how much distance did he get on that one?
I don't know. It's wow.
Ooh.
I'm gonna have to. I'm going to send an email. But I send another.
Oh, I am so
message
eager to
some
see the
other
video of this.
professors to come
Fascinating.
participate.
Quite
I brought this one. This is the marvelous thing. It came from Lepiday 5D. And Professor Briggs, I was thinking of you when I packed this one.
Oh, oh, lovely.
Isn't that marvelous?
Oh, I could just think of so many things I could do with that.
Now,
what did they do that without, you think?
Isn't that fantastic?
It is fascinating. Look at the way it interacts with itself. Quite
Yes,
marvelous.
indeed. Now, one of my students suggested that it was a musical instrument of sorts, because it does in fact make like a rhythmic, but I wondered if there might be some sort of, well, possibly a capture device of sorts, because they're small creatures on the planet that this came from on Lepiday. And if you were a good hunter, you could catch prey in this and bring it back. And possibly, as this is metal, depending on whether or not you were really very hungry, cook it in the same device once you had dispatched it.
I wonder if it's not a hair ornament.
Well, it is a bit heavy.
Some of them are, you know.
I suppose so. But I wondered also, for your particular specialty, if you saw any application of that kind.
If you heat it upon a fire, I think as you were talking about cooking the lovely little lizards from Lepiday, those wonderful arachnids. Have you ever had one of those? The orange ones are the best. Oh.
Well, I've had various kinds of sea arachnids, but land arachnids are a bit too hairy for my taste.
You must broaden your taste, Professor.
I have tried them, and I really do not care for picking tarantula hair out of my tongue. I've done it. I've had it.
I guess it depends on who you have picking tarantula hair out of your tongue.
Well, that is
Yes.
true. That is true. Trouble shared is trouble halved. Dr. Osborn, do you have any thoughts about this device?
Well, I was wondering if it may be some form of a tribal marking device, a ritual to where tattoos or markings were formed by basically branding them into your skin.
Oh, heating it up, perhaps? I'll have to get one of my students and try it on them.
Branding.
So
Yes.
then on an arm or a leg or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
each
Both cheeks.
tribe would have a different shape in the center.
That's quite fascinating.
Very
Dr.
interesting.
Osborn, I do like the way your mind works.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, you should have seen it when we dug this one up. It was quite astonishingly filthy, and there was quite a lot of biological trace on it, I'm afraid. So, Professor Beall, have you ever seen one of these?
I have not, but I do think that the symmetry involved might very well have the application that Dr. Osborn mentioned, which is it would allow you to have a perfectly symmetric spacing of markings. So
That's true.
so it has, and also some tentacles are fairly flat. So if you were trying to mark tentacles, then that would particularly allow you to mark both sides at the same time.
Well, Lepidé is very much an ocean world. There's only about 15% land above the sea, so quite interesting.
You know, the other thing you mentioned earlier about it being a musical instrument, it could very well be both a musical instrument as a preliminary to the marking.
Oh,
Interesting.
For instance, a
Good
very
idea.
animal, the ear could be marked.
That's true. That's true. Especially some of the ones with large fleshy lobes.
Can you
Right.
just see the ceremony now where you have a large number of these all clacking at the same time as they get ready to initiate a new group of individuals into whatever the tribal custom is?
It would be stirring.
It would be wonderful.
Professor Beall, you always do such a good job of bringing the visualization of these ancient artifacts to our hearts and minds.
This
The only
is
way I can get grants. But yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Dr. Osborn, do you have any other objects from your research where some of the things that you've presented are just fascinating?
In one of our digs, we actually found, much like the ancient Egyptian mummies, we found an embalmed animal.
Good heavens.
Very excited about this. Let me bring it out for you.
Ooh. And what an unusual color as well. It seems to be extremely well preserved.
Completely intact, but it's been embalmed using some form of just fiber material.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's incredibly old, it is very soft. So obviously they had some sort of method of treating the skins and the hides that completely prevented them from drying out. But it does
Fantastic.
give us a look into the past of some of the animals that walked the earth at that point. We just never knew they were this brightly colored.
No, indeed. It would attract attention. I haven't seen anything like that. I'm afraid that probably means that they are sadly extinct.
Right. We think that it is basically their brightly colored fur, though beautiful, was their downfall. Because I can only foresee one, predators would be able to spot them instantly. Two, humans would want to use the fur for decorative clothing, as it's always been.
Yes,
So
actually, I have seen some documentation of beings, inhabitants of that sphere, who were wearing, in fact, colors and textures not unlike that creature.
yes, So we were very excited to at least find one that was completely intact. So
Wonderful.
we're going to be studying this for quite some time.
I think, Dr. Osborn, you should judge yourself quite fortunate, because my experience in nature is that most animals that are that brightly colored want to be seen by predators because their fur is poisonous.
We had not thought of that.
So have you been counting your grad students carefully? Are you missing any too?
Well, if we're only missing 2, we don't count that.
If they were the first 2 to handle that, that might explain why the others can handle it safely.
It might also be, Professor Beall, if they had consumed any of the fur or put any of it in their mouths. Perhaps it's not a contact poison at all, but reacts to saliva or to nerve tissue.
Not explicitly tell them, do not lick the animal. And so it's very well in some hazing type situation, they may have attempted it.
Well, may they rest in peace.
If in fact you have them and it turns out to be painful, I'm sure Dr. Briggs will be getting in contact with you.
Yes, yes.
Yes, indeed. She'll probably, you probably should ask him for samples if any of it has.
This would be lovely. I have this professor who lives in the office next to mine, who's been quite pushy lately at our weekly meetings. I think that would be a wonderful thing to give him to try.
Well, one for complete.
That's lovely. And how generous of you to think of giving it to him.
I am the height of generosity.
And they say academics are mean. Oh my, they don't know us, do they?
Oh no.
Professor Beall, have you found anything on that order that possibly representational of creatures from these species on Rigel?
Well, you mentioned it. I don't have any item about the species, about the creatures themselves, but the crate does contain an item that was originally classified. Well, let me show it to you. I'm going to handle it carefully because I don't want to handle one end of it. You'll understand why in a minute. This was cataloged as one of the ancient Rigel rump reamers. And so you can understand why I don't want to, yes. But
I wouldn't either.
The problem is that it has a feature on it that none of the other ones have ever been known to have. And that is it extends. And there's no species on Rigel known in the historical or even in the fossil record that has a rump that would, shall we say, need this kind of extension for reaming. So,
I have a grad student.
I don't know. I don't have any answers to this yet. So I thought I would bring it to this symposium to see if I would have any solutions offered by the other authorities here.
Well, perhaps Professor Briggs can lend you one of her grad students.
For field testing? Well, the first professor who tested that might be arriving there, where Professor Briggs' location sometime soon. So maybe it'll be a fair trade.
Could it possibly have been used to aid people during some sort of plague?
How so?
Oh.
So that someone who cannot take care of themselves is assisted by medical personnel, but they can do it from a distance.
So grooming device. As much as I love the torturous aspects, I have to say, Dr. Osborn, that sounds quite likely to me.
But
that would
seem to almost feel those soft, feathery things at the end touching my skin, and I think that might be nice.
You know, that gives another dimension, shall we say, to this extension, by the way.
Exactly. And it could, something that nice and soft could be used for several purposes of cleaning or caring.
You may be right, but I still don't want to get anywhere near the ends of this thing.
I think you're quite right. After all, viruses can exist for centuries, if not millennia, without. So heaven only knows.
As Dr. Smith learned, You remember Dr. Smith of the Orion Tales?
Of cherished memory, yes.
Yes. Such a nice old man.
I swear there's something movie on this.
There is indeed. Professor Briggs, I know that you have something really special for us.
I
So
do.
I have been waiting with bated breath.
This is my most special discovery to date. We found a whole cache of these in an old house we broke into. They had a whole room devoted just to these items. And we conducted a series of experiments. And the most interesting one points to this being actually an ancient interdimensional or magical, they would have said, but we know it's interdimensional item. If you take this item and put it with 4 or 5 exactly the same in a box and leave it out in the forest for a week or so. So in our particular experiment, there were 5 of them. And we went back in a week and we opened it up and there were 6 containers like this. There were 12 lids and none of them fit any of the containers. It was marvelous. I'm writing a paper on this.
Do you think that they have transporter skills and that they exchange perhaps through the lost single sock dimension?
I don't know. Truthfully, the only result that any of us have ever been able to come up with, and we do this fairly frequently, we send our new grad students out for this, is that it seems to elicit this a response of frustration that seems to be all out of proportion to the interdimensional travel capabilities.
Ah, I wonder if any living creature has ever traveled with one of these lids to the other place where the exchange is made.
I don't know.
Do we have any grad students that...
I don't have any small enough, unfortunately. Maybe we could cut them up in pieces. Maybe we could cut them up in pieces.
I think Professor Lyra might have some. She was working with some very small species indeed. And I will put the 2 of you in touch.
Marvelous, marvelous. Thank you, Dr. Nye.
And I have something fantastic that it is so strange as to be unique, at least in my experience. It's very heavy.
Oh.
And I think that as you can see, it is also a musical instrument, although the ability to play it is sadly lost. But it has a rhythmic device here on a lever, and of course there is the horn for producing sound. I'm afraid that none of us have yet figured out how to play it, though. But it's a wonderful thing, and we're all very eager to do more research on it. This of course came from Scarfno Prime, and well, there were quite a number of them like this. Some of them seem to have been designed to be mounted on a wall because they were too large to be played on the lap. But this one, of course, is quite portable, and I would say could be used in marching bands or in many other applications, I should think.
Are you sure it's not a hair ornament?
This would have to be a head ornament. It weighs a couple of kilos.
So a hat. A hat.
Yes, indeed. Very likely a hat.
Reinforce your posture, right? Yes.
Well, I think it's very pretty, but
it is very pretty.
It's difficult to play from up here.
Maybe you need it. Maybe your assistant plays it. Maybe you march and your assistant behind you plays it.
Well, of course, I'm not the sort of species that existed on Scarfno, but nevertheless.
Would the cords perhaps be used to affix it to the being?
Perhaps it did. It is a double cord, as you can see here. That there's actually 2. So maybe it was worn, and I wouldn't have thought that. Thank you very much, Professor. What a marvelous notion. But I was just enchanted by the complexity of it, and yet this utter simplicity. It seems to be made of a ceramic substance, and like I said, of substantial weight. So it would make a real showstopper wherever it went.
Maybe it's a weapon.
Well, it is a bit fragile. We found a couple of these that had actually been shattered.
Oh,
So it would be like the cut glass fly swatter. It would be good for ornamentation and ceremonial purposes. So I'm not certain. I believed it to be a musical instrument because that, silly me, I believed my grad students.
Oh, never do that.
Exactly. Dr. Osborn, do you have any thoughts about this?
I'm just wondering, have you tried blowing in the different openings?
Yes, yes, we have. It does not. I think that something was lost over the millennia, the millions of years, perhaps, that it has been buried. Uh, we can't produce any sound on it. Perhaps we lack the aperture of what a scarf now of the very, very distant past possessed.
Okay, yeah.
What a marvelous find.
It is a wonderful thing, and we have enjoyed speculating on it and hoping someday we can actually hear whatever it was that it produced.
Lovely.
Yes,
Well,
indeed.
I would ask one question. You say that you found breakages of other specimens.
Yes, indeed.
Are the breakages all in about the same place?
Most of them are. Most of them are the horn. There were chips in various other places.
I ask that because if it was a weapon, that would be, or a ritual sacrificial weapon, then you would expect the chips all to be at the impact point.
Mm, okay. Well, the trouble is then that it couldn't be used thereafter for the same reason. You would want to produce only the most perfect specimens for a sacrifice.
Right, but what I'm saying is they may have been perfect, but the whole idea of the ritual is that the weapon that completes the ritual is itself sacrificed along with the sacrifice.
I would say that, except that this does show signs of wear that can't be put down to having been buried for 2 million years.
Very well.
So I don't know. More research needs to be done. For that, we need more funding. So, Professor Briggs, do you have another wonderful artifact to show us?
Since we're dealing with musical instruments, I thought I would show you this one. And you can hear the lovely noise that it makes. And we discovered a whole bunch of these together. Now, some of them have little pretty spiky things on there, which are my favorite. But I thought I'd bring this one out because it, to me, has the most lovely noise.
Oh, so a musical torture device, not unlike an accordion.
Yes! That was such a lovely discovery. I wish I had made it.
Mm-hmm. Well, Professor Beall, have you ever seen anything like this?
There were objects very similar to that were worn as on the limbs of the creatures.
I see. Not on the chin.
It does.
Not on that species, but they were some of them were ornamental, but other ones though that rounded end had a larger spike to it. So we always suspected that they were part of a martial sport or a martial warrior that would use that tentacle that it's about to be part of its weaponry.
Oh, like on Cardwennel 2. Yes.
I should try this on some of my subjects.
It also could be military in that it's worn much like in the sense of epaulets.
It's a little narrow for me, but perhaps on that species.
Right. Yeah, and so you wear not only on the wrist, but all up and down the arm to show not only power, but also rank.
Ooh.
Interesting.
That is one. I have not thought of that. I have to punish that grad student who only said musical instrument.
Oh my. Well, I think that would be very fitting indeed.
How could they not see the greater implications?
Oh my. Well, Professor, Dr. Osborn, did you have another device for us to see? Perhaps?
Got one little bitty one.
Okay. Sometimes the smallest ones are the ones of the most great interest.
Hope you can see this.
Oh, fascinating.
See that?
Fascinating.
Well, tell us about it.
Made out of metal, and it has a little hook here that retracts. We believe that it was some sort of bird training device. I have to attach messages. The bird's head would fit right in here with this along the side of its beak, and the message would be put back here.
Huh.
And they would set the bird loose.
How curious.
Perhaps it's some kind of a door, and the little floppy thing is the hinge, and then it would open and shut, like for a cockroach or something like that.
Could
We do
be.
know that they had cockroaches back then. They're about the only thing that survived the Great Cataclysm.
It is a most curious device indeed. I don't know. It does have a sharp edge,
Yes.
and it perhaps in your estimation, Professor Briggs, a small torture device or a very portable little one.
What a lovely thought,
Yes,
Professor Nye.
that could be placed in the mouth or.
Collapsed to a very small space.
Yes, indeed. It's extremely portable. It could go into one's collar or very handy.
Oh, lovely. Oh, lovely.
It could also perhaps be something that could be put as on climbing gear, like on the shoe, to allow like if you were climbing up a rock face with some species, that would be a way to be able to get more gripping on a rock face or something of that sort.
Like a cleat.
Yes, a very small crampon of some kind. Seems as though we found a partial skeleton of a creature from Iskalati 9. And you see, we found, I think, both manipulative digits and a part of the skull. See that this is an eye socket here, and this looks like it's part of the mandible, but they were all found in one chamber. So along with quite a lot of, I think, ritual objects that might have accompanied the burial. But these were all very close together. So I think that they were possibly part of the same being. But look at the striations of color in this. It shows that there was some sort of wonderful mineral deposits that went through here, much as the way opal is created by replacing the original material with stone by accretion over the course of many millennia. But this one was not pigmented, so possibly it was separated in some fashion from the others,
or a lesser being.
Yes, it's quite marvelous. But look at the eye socket. It has 3 notches in it, showing that it might have had 3 optic nerves, or possibly even more, because some of these notches are quite wide. I was absolutely delighted. We're trying to see if there are any more of the skeleton exists.
Well, in some ancient civilizations, it wasn't uncommon to separate the head from the body and have it buried in a location nearby.
Oh, like witch doctors in some civilizations. Yes.
That believed in vampires and things like that.
Have you checked to see if there are tooth markings on the bones to indicate that perhaps instead of a burial, what you had was a dinner refuge pile?
There were other objects very much like this, and they did have tooth marks on it. These particular ones did not, possibly showing that this creature was responsible for those tooth marks. I speculate that this was the lead priest or celebrant, and we look forward to learning more about this because it's in such good condition that we're just absolutely delighted. So I believe that we are running out of time. The people who are going to be speaking to us from DeMilton 4 are coming on very shortly. So I invite my professors and with the greatest of thanks from the University of Esher to once again introduce themselves and perhaps tell where the researches are to be found. So Dr. Osborn, would you please begin?
Yes, once again, I'm Dr. Osborn, and you can find my research coming to you out of Huntsville, Alabama. It was known long ago as the Rocket City. So I hope to see all of you around the events.
Okay, Dr. Beall.
Well, I believe in another part of this symposium, one of my presentations on recycling is going to be presented. That one I invite people to come to. And I really, most of my research can be found on the Bain site when I publish some of the findings I have on my other sites. And of course, I want to give thanks to the University of Rigel for continuing to provide me with artifacts. And there's something, I swear there's something else moving in there, but anyway, I want to thank you very much for this opportunity.
And of course, Professor Briggs, thank you so much for coming to our symposium.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I just love joining with you and enjoying the very special artifacts that we have found this year. My writings can be found under my full name, which is Patricia Briggs. And the publishing house is, it changes from day to day. It used to be Berkeley, and then it was Berkeley Penguin, and now it's a Penguin. And I really wanted it to be Random Penguin because I thought that would be lovely to have random penguins all over everything, but they didn't listen to me. So it's Penguin Random House.
And I am Jody Lynn Nye, and my writings can also be found in many places. In fact, some of them from Bain, some of them from Ace Books, and many others. Naturally, you can find information under my name and .com. I realize that it is an ancient reference to my research files, but sometimes the old ways are the good ways. And with that, I want to thank everyone for coming, and thank you for listening to us. And as usual, may I remind you, we need more funding.
More money, please.
I may need more grad students too.